Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Uh, yeah, I'm fine. Good morning.
Good morning. It's morning.
Yeah,
It's not super early, but it's
not at all. No.
no, for parents it's like midday.
Yeah. Even though I know a lot of these uh, our tech friends out there, they are about to maybe roll out of bed soon and turn on their Zoom calls for today. So
Yeah.
yeah, what's happening?
Had a birthday yesterday. Was nice.
Yeah.
It was say happy birthday.
Yeah, happy birthday. Happy birthday. I was trying to figure out something funny to say, but
Yeah, it was, it was a different kind of birthday because we were home all day, but it was nice. I mean, I have to say, the first birthday that my husband and I had together, he took me to Paris. So that was nice. But this was one of the best birthdays that I've had in a while.
nice.
Yeah. I mean, one year my mother was here, and then, then there was a birthday. Yeah, I mean, we've had, kind of ups and downs, but the birthdays keep climbing. So, but this was a good one. Yesterday was a nice day.
So how does it feel to be 25?
Feels great. Yeah, no, it wasn't as a super important birthday. I mean, I guess all birthdays are somewhat important because you survived another year, but it was it feels nice.
Did you have any thoughts about, well, okay, what am I going to achieve in this next year or so?
I mean, I have so much that I want to achieve. And I mean, 33 was already a great year for me, despite, I just revealed my age. I turned 34 yesterday. And
Gotcha.
yeah, I'm going to do a new course starting soon. And, just to continue with, all of the learning. I said at the beginning of the year that, for me, last year was a year of, books and learning. This year is a year of go and, just moving forward. So there's lots to achieve, and I have specific goals, with my family. I mean, it's kind of, dependent also on, the way the world is moving right now. But so far, I mean, I can't complain so much about this year. I get to spend more time with my daughter, and even though, we're home a lot, we take little trips to the, drugstore, and we go about, our life. So making the most of it.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very sane thing to think about, and not to maybe have too much focus on a specific date that something is going to happen, that okay, well, the lockdown is going to end at February 14th or something
Right.
like that, and put your hopes up too much on those things. And no, just live in the present kind of thing.
Yep.
But obviously, it's nothing wrong with planning and having some ideas of where you want to go, and then you simply have to adapt with the circumstances that are there. Like you can't go to Paris for your birthday or for a trip or so. And yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting to see what what happens and so on with are we going to have vaccines that are working?
Yep.
Will we have next year or will next winter, autumn or fall have reinsurgence of this virus?
Yeah.
I find it highly likely that we will have like another wave of a seasonal resurgence, simply, even with vaccination. But that's my again, it's not my pessimistic line of thought. It's just, as much as I understand viruses, this
Yeah.
is kind of how viruses work. It's like they mutate and they
Mm-hmm.
try to find a way, and it might just not be as lethal
Mm-hmm.
when it mutates.
Mm-hmm.
It's not beneficial for you know, viruses to be lethal.
Right.
The point of the virus is to survive as long as possible and
Right.
to, you know, spread as much as possible. And if
Yeah.
it's too infectious, or sorry, if it's too dangerous, then it's simply not going to be successful as a virus in, you know, yeah, getting its grip.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
But yeah, that's not what we're here talking about.
No, today we have a really cool topic. There's so much to unpack about it. We're going to be talking about insecurities in, many kind of different factors of our life. One of those being, body complex. We're going to talk about parenting. We're going to talk about performance and how, men and women both kind of, navigate their life with the insecurities that they have and how to overcome insecurities, what insecurities are. I think it's important to talk about what it is, how, limiting factors really change the course of our goals that we want to achieve. They can really change our kind of our egoic state. We can very easily let our insecurities be the driving force in our life. So I guess the first question that I have for you is, how would you define insecurity?
Oh yeah, good. I haven't really thought about that, but yeah, insecurity is it is, as it says, maybe something you feel unsafe.
Mm-hmm.
You're vulnerable,
Mm-hmm.
and insecurity is something that makes us feel vulnerable, and also maybe limits us into getting into the crossfire. Or if it's imaginative, or if not, it's an insecurity that somehow holds us back. That would be at least my view of it. I never had like never had the idea that a insecurity would be like a positive driver for us. So now I'm thinking rather that it's something that is limiting us, and yeah.
Yes, it's definitely a belief that we have, right? Whether it be, incredibly strong, or something that's just kind of needling at us, a fear of doing something. And I guess the question is how do you overcome that? I don't think it's enough to say, well, just tell it to go away. I think you have to look it square in the face and acknowledge it, and be brave enough to let that insecurity speak, to hear what it has to say. Because whatever you don't acknowledge, right? And I guess it goes hand in hand with things like, forgiveness. Whatever you don't acknowledge, it will always be there in your life, kind of looking for resolution. So insecurity, I think, is the same way. We don't want it in our life, but at the same time, we don't want to acknowledge it. We don't want to.
It's too scary.
It's too scary. Yeah, it's fearful. And what it might say, we don't want to hear.
Yeah.
It's like looking in the mirror, right?
Yeah. We talked about, I mean, I had this talk with, not only one person, but multiple persons, a common theme, very common, is just like I don't want to step on a scale. Or it can be, okay, I can step on a scale, but I definitely don't want to see how much body fat I have. Or it can be, I don't want to see what I'm eating. I don't want to track what I'm eating. And all those things come down to revealing something that you're scared of, right? We take the body weight. It might be, this definitely does not fit in my world observation,
Right.
And I rather live in ignorance and in my made up world than to have that basal fact.
Right.
And to be honest, like, are the reasons for that, if we look at the scale, like, I mean, the scale is not per se important. It's just what you make it. If you have a certain, if you are connecting the scale, a number on the scale, whatever that number is, 65 kilos, 85 kilos, or 100 kilos, if you have a certain idea of what that means, like that you're a failure if you're above this or whatever, or that it would change your, the way you look at yourself and everything.
Right.
That's only stories, right?
Right.
You're telling yourself, because it's just a number. It's just a basal fact number. And you have now the option to use that number,
Right.
rather than to be, labeled by that number.
Yeah, it reveals this kind of deeper truth about ourselves.
Yeah. I mean, I guess one of the most revealing or hard to take things would be maybe intelligence. So measure your intelligence, and because it tends to be, or seen to be, pretty finite. Like, in you reach a certain intelligence, mostly it's inheritance. So whatever genes you have made you this this smart or dumb, and that might be also like frightening, because that's a number that it's super hard to actually change. At least what most scientists think. And then there is, of course, this more like post-modernic idea that you can just make up. If you feel like you're intelligent, you are intelligent, but that's not really true. This is where science and science fiction goes apart. But yeah, so you reach a certain number. So we say intelligence tests. I would do that, and it ends up to be, 90. And for those who don't know, like, to be in those 80 to 90 is you're basically a moron. But we have 10% of our population at least in that category, and what it means to be in that category is that you have super hard to do the simplest tasks. You have super hard to be organized. You're super hard to do the simplest tasks, as just folding a letter or folding your clothes or something like that. It's simply not doable. Right. So does that mean that just because I have this intelligence, I'm just not gonna do my best? No, it's still like there's still value there that I can bring. But I should not I should try. Try, but also there should not be any delusion of, well, if you just try hard enough, you're going to get to Harvard. No, it's not gonna happen. And because setting those even then too unrealistic goals, that will also be just heartbreaking
Right.
in one sense. But there's some kind of aspiration of keep on dreaming. I think like Forrest Gump is this kind of great way of signaling this, because in the movie he gets scored very low IQ
Mm-hmm.
and so on, but he's in this character, he demonstrates like nice character. Simply,
Mm-hmm.
he's trustworthy. He
And
does what
compassion.
he does what he says.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't understand everything, and
Right.
that makes him mad.
Right.
But he has the right character,
Mm-hmm.
meaning that he tries his best. Well, if you go from here to here, he does that,
Mm-hmm.
and he just follows order in one sense, and in his world, the good thing is that he has this um, yeah, he has been built at least a good character.
Mm-hmm.
So you could build someone a bad character, and that would be a monster. But
Mm-hmm.
he ends up just by having a good character, people are recognizing that, and that makes him successful.
Right.
So even though he's not successful or not intelligent, he still people accept that, and he can reap the benefits of that. So
Right.
it's
Yeah.
there's some more archetypical story behind that. I would say that's why people love this story, because it's kind of gives everyone hope that as long as I show good character, that's yeah.
Yeah. How does insecurity come into play with parenting?
Oh,
I think this is an entire episode,
yeah,
but
I definitely.
we
I
can.
mean, the parenting thing is a huge one, especially now, and it comes down to, again, character building.
Yeah.
Because we are, I mean, our generation, we kind of were raised, our generation, the generation before us, we were raised up in this context of almost like delusional thinking of a lot of unicorns, and not growing up, and people are still in their 30s 40s like, oh, that's such a grown-up thing to do,
Mm-hmm.
which is like ridiculous in one sense. But
Mm-hmm.
it's just it's not like, I don't blame anyone for that, but it's just a sign of where the society has
Mm-hmm.
been and where it is.
Mm-hmm.
So we have like these all grown up kids running around right now, and in one sense haven't got the character built as they should, and so on. So right now, as a parent, everyone is a bit like lost, and what should I do? If I'm like, is this a good way? Should I shout like this? Am I right to be angry? Am I um and all these like insecurities. Oh, I can't, I'm going to traumatize my kid if I do this.
Right.
I can't feed my kid this.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to destroy my kid, and so on. So, and being a good parent, what is that? For most of us is like, well, I looking at from a female perspective, it's like there's no forgiving as a female in this perspective. Like, you have to be successful at work.
Right.
So you need to work if you want to be successful and be top law firm woman, or business executive.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you need to work 60 hours a week.
Right.
But hey, you have to be a good mom.
Mm-hmm.
But being a good mom is probably also 60 hours a week.
Yeah.
So how are you going to fit that? It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Like, so you have to make a choice as a woman. I mean, men have to do this too. But as a woman, the expectation is simply you have to be a great mom and a great careerist. And that outer pressure, as I see it, is like, making a lot of women feel bad about themselves. And in one sense also, to be successful at your career and so on.
Yeah.
Well, you can't have kids when you're 20. You need to study. You need to do this. And so you're postponing parenting and getting kids and everything.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then you end up like in your, mid 30s, late 30s, 40s, and you don't have a family
Mm-hmm.
because you pursued
Mm-hmm.
this other road
Mm-hmm.
route. And then from the other side, the perspective, well, you are 20, you start study, you get pregnant,
Mm-hmm.
and you say, no, I want to do, I want to have a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And ends up being super hard, and I can't finish my studies on time. And I'm still now in my early 30s. I haven't, I just maybe finished my studies, or I haven't finished my studies, and now I'm kind of working a bit, and but mostly taking care of, I maybe got even 2 kids by now. And now the outer pressure is like, well, why aren't you doing anything with your career, your
Yeah.
life? You can't just work in a drugstore all life.
Yeah.
And like you're just a home working mom. Like
Mm-hmm.
what's at least that's the story what many women, I think, are telling themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And this is like tearing many people apart.
I think so much of what happens, and I can speak from experience, is after you have a kid, you do lose a sense of yourself because all of the sudden you have something else that's your world that's so important, you would do anything for, and you lose the love for yourself and taking care of yourself. All of your energy is focused on the baby,
Mm.
right? And making sure you're doing everything right,
Mm.
right? Or everything that's by the book, or everything that everybody is telling you to do. I know you're not doing this right. Oh, you should do it this way. Oh, you should read this book. And, and so often I think, again, from experience, is you stopped even listening to your own instincts,
Mm-hmm.
your own intuition.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that I did when I became a new mom is I stopped reading any parenting books. I listened to podcasts, week by week when I was pregnant, oh, this week, the baby grew, the fingernails, and as soon as she came out, I just stopped reading any books because I was like, this is not going to help me.
Yeah.
I need to use my instinct right now.
Yeah.
And I need to take care of myself.
Mm-hmm.
I put myself,
Mm.
At the top.
Mm.
Of course, I took care of my baby, but I really put it in my mind that, okay, if I'm going to take care of this baby, I'm gonna need to take care of myself.
Mm-hmm.
And women just forget to do that.
Yeah. 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 There's I mean, again, it comes to this view of being the perfect mom, maybe, and that means total sacrifice of yourself, which I don't think is true. It's like in any relationship, you shouldn't sacrifice yourself.
No.
And but yeah, I think it's interesting, this common thing, like when you get your first kid, you are usually very into, as you said, listening to week by week what happens with the fetus and whatever.
Yep.
And that comes down to, because it's simply something many of us have blocked,
Mm-hmm.
not look into
Mm-hmm.
until it's at that point.
Yeah.
Because it's scary,
right,
that I might have that ultimate responsibility.
Right.
Whereas this, in many other cultures, where it's like, well, of course you're going to be a mom, of course you're going to have a family.
Mm-hmm.
In our Western society, it's like, well, yeah, there's this kind of notion that you're going to have a family. It's just, almost gone.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's like, well, we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
And in, more, I would say, older cultures, or just if you go back 100 years, it was obvious, like that we will have families, we will have this.
Mm-hmm.
So of course you were much more prepared.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, did you have, so what was your, did you have like one big insecurity as a mom when you, before or after, or you know?
Before I had Sophia, my biggest fear was that I would lose who I am.
Mm-hmm.
I had this idea that I had built myself up, my entire life. And as soon as I had the baby, all of that would go away. That was a huge fear of mine.
Mm.
And then once I had Sophia, I mean, of course, you're full of hormones, and that first year is just something like I can't even describe it unless you live it firsthand. It's very overwhelming, and you come face to face with very scary moments, where you're just like, I don't know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think my insecurity was, it's like, keep the baby alive,
Yeah.
right? Keep the baby alive. I have kind of a framework,
Mm.
but my biggest thing was I have to take care of me, because if I take care of me, then I'll have the mindset, I'll have the motivation, all the intention, everything to be able to take care of my family.
Mm.
So I did, very consciously take care of myself.
Mm.
And that was a choice that I had to make all of the time.
Mm. Well, no, it's interesting with this losing yourself, because that's actually what's going to happen. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you're not going to be the same as before.
Mm-hmm.
And anyone that tells you it's going to be just the same, but you have a kid, no, it's not true. And you know, it is this. The analogy, as I see it, is that as soon as you walk through that door, there's no return.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's simply a completely new world of who you are and the potential you have.
Yeah.
And if you don't walk through that world, you can have a super happy life and so on. But it is a bit like, I don't know. I guess the analogy would be like having this super amazing drug. If there's probably a super amazing drug out there, if I take it, that would be like blowing my mind.
Yeah.
And I would just be on this drug all day. And now I can still have a very happy life without taking that drug.
Yeah.
Because I'm kind of in ignorance, and I can still travel the world, I can do all these things, I can write books, I can become famous, I can build children's hospitals and be like a guy with a good heart and character and everything.
Yeah.
But I never experienced that drug.
Yeah.
Because that drug is still going to be more powerful than building 1 million children's hospitals,
Right.
and so on.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the thing that I analyze this situation of being a parent is like this ultimate drug that you have taken it or not. And there's no reason for me to talk to anyone that hasn't had the drug and try to I don't need to talk someone into it or anything. But I know when you've taken it, you're here, you're in the trip.
Yeah.
And not to say that if you haven't, then awesome, build 1 million children's hospitals and do everything that will fulfill your life.
Yeah.
And in one sense, I think, let's say, being a politician, being like a high executive and so on, is almost trying to fill that void in one sense, that we want to take care of people, be responsible to so many people, as much people as possible. And by some people, that need is so big, so great, that they need to become the president, or they need to become the Bundeskanzlerin, and take care of as much responsibility as possible, in one sense, like fill that void. Because what tends to happen is that a lot of people that are seeking that ultimate responsibility, they're maybe fleeing their ultimate responsibility from their actual families. And like a common observation I have is people that have like the hardest time with their own relationships with their parents, siblings, with their kids, maybe, is that they try to take on some other responsibility, so they can, in one way, fill that void. It's much easier to fix, let's say, your problem, and try to be here for you than try to really fix my own. So that's just a common observation. And this kind of, if you map it out on like a political scale, you can see maybe what people are trying to help the entire world, and what's the domestic, like their real personal relationships behind there. So yeah, a lot about parenting, but what does this have to do with
insecurity?
It's no, but insecurity, but with let's say CrossFit, fitness.
Well, I think people, when you have such a major life change, that really, kind of changes, the direction that you kind of, have been going on. I see that people stop challenging themselves. And they might seek out these big kind of grand challenges, to like go like hike up a huge mountain or something. But how can people how can people get back to themselves in a moment in their life where insecurity, where doubt, where questions, where, feeling unsafe? What can, I guess, CrossFit, or, following, a specified fitness program, change that? Or how can that alleviate or mitigate, insecurities in one's life?
So one good thing, I guess, with CrossFit, and like the method of CrossFit, is that, well, it requires kind of hard work, and it requires it builds you slowly up with these good things like grit, character, mental strength. And so in one sense, you're building yourself up, strengthening yourself up, physically, but also mentally. And that will probably make it easier for you to actually start to face these demons. And if we look at specifically demons about our own bodies, that's a very common insecurity. Like, I don't think I know anyone that really doesn't have an insecurity point of their own body somewhere. And you can look up the most successful and beautiful and sexy people out there, and they are full with insecurities about their body. And what I see is that when you start training, so most people might have some insecurities. So they see like, okay, I want to drop some weight, I want to lose some weight. So maybe that would be a way to get my insecurities to go away, to just drop weight
Mm-hmm.
and be lighter, or
Mm-hmm.
lose fat. And what happens is when you start training, blah blah blah, you start to feel better and everything. Is that again, you start to maybe be more like at the beginning, you might not even want to step on a scale, right?
Right.
But after doing this and mentally struggling and right pushing yourself and building that grit and so on,
Mm-hmm.
suddenly you have the power and you have the mental strength and courage
Mm-hmm.
to face that demon. Like, okay, I'm ready to face the facts now. And so it slowly builds you up, and then you can overcome this fear of your insecurity with the weight.
Mm-hmm.
But it might be, you might have had insecurities about something else, like I don't know, like a typical one for guys, I guess, is like, well, if you're overweight, that you have what's called bitch tits or something like that.
Bitch tits.
Yeah, and you want to um and that's the insecurity for many.
Mm-hmm.
And you start training, and it might take you just a couple of months, and suddenly you can face yourself in that fact that, hey, I can actually be, like I'm here now, but I know
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to change over time. And so that means these guys, they can take off their shirt.
Yeah.
They start to feel like, I am accepted for who I am,
Mm-hmm.
and I can accept who I am too. In that sense, getting rid of that insecurity of what other people might think, which might be the underlying cause to this insecurity. But I think the insecurity comes from not have faced the actual fact of
Mm-hmm.
actually facing this demon, which is talking to you behind your subconscious
Yeah.
talk, whatever.
Yeah.
And it's not an easy task, but then the more mental strength you have, and you start to build this like foundation
Mm-hmm.
of mental capacity and so on, and this base, you're going to be able to deal with other insecurities that
Yeah.
might just not be about your body weight,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is, again, that's just a number. It doesn't tell us anything really.
Yeah.
It's like BMI. It doesn't tell us that much at all.
Mm-hmm.
Like all these numbers together, that tells us gives us a bigger picture. But like one number, not enough.
Yeah.
So I don't need to be specifically afraid about that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, then we have other insecurities. It's like when you come to, it might be at work, like how to handle difficult persons at work, or
Mm-hmm.
how to handle your boss, or how
Mm-hmm.
to handle your employees, or clients.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it builds this character slowly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I see so much, especially at once upon a time when our gyms were open, and we would have group classes, is that I would see firsthand, you know when I was in the class participating as a member, is that when people, and this is true for myself, is when you give yourself the opportunity to show what you're made of, even if it's even if it's just a fraction of where you are 6 months down the road. But when you give yourself the opportunity to start to show what you're made of, the insecurity starts to fade away.
Yeah.
And you grow from that and you learn. And so then what I see is that, a mistake that you make at the very beginning versus the mistake that you make 6 months down the road is completely different. It doesn't phase you. It doesn't, your entire perspective changes. And because you're doing something with intention. And I think intention is such a key factor when it comes to growing away from your fears, right? When you do something intentionally, you're conscious, you're present, you're in the driver's seat. And when you're in the driver's seat, there's no room for insecurity, right? There's only room for you driving the bus, right? Could you talk about some things that you see from, maybe from some of our members that, have changed?
Yeah. It's, I mean, to be honest, most people change. Most people change over time, and the longer people stay, the more they change to the better. And or to the better. That's wrong. I would say you changed to a part to a stage where this might be the thing that where you want to develop further, but you might this might just be the catalyst to do something else too. And this is also one important thing, is that this, of course, we want to build your character, we want to make you stronger and feel happier and everything, but you need to use that outside the gym. Like, we can't just be living inside the gym. We can't just only do CrossFit. We do CrossFit so we can do other stuff,
right?
And so I think that's important to remember. But yeah, I have a good example from a member who told me, I'm not going to disclose any names, but told me that, had a very rough, not rough, but like, growing up, and the connection with sports was, maybe in school, and in school getting ridiculed all the time by the others, the peers. That made this person super insecure. And, those things that happen when you're a kid, they tend to stick for a long while. And again, we start to tell ourselves these stories. So when this person, is doing something, by himself, can only see all these bullies from school watching and saying like, you're not good enough, and so on. So why even try?
Right.
So the big change was then when this person started to train here and started to realize that I'm accepted for who I am. So I don't need to do the same weight as Rebecca. If I can't do something else, like the coach is there and high fives me and gives me motivation, gives me a good workout, and I try my best, and everyone is happy for me that I actually finished a workout, or that I managed to do this today. And to be in that surrounding, never been in that surrounding where people are just supporting me. And yeah, that's huge. Think about like having 30 years or so of telling yourself that you're not allowed to, and being insecure, and being shut down in one way, and now being able to start to grow. That's super, super touching story. At least when I talked to this person, I was like, okay, this is, I need to hold my tears now. So, yeah, I think there's something really good in that. And also something to share is this, like, the supportiveness of what we're doing. And yeah, so we can overcome big insecurities, and this is going to trickle down to, again, not only from sports, but what other insecurities do we have that we are told from, you know, or we got told as a kid or whatever, and we're telling us these stories, and suddenly we realize that this is just a stupid story
Yeah.
that we're telling ourselves.
Yeah.
I have another example outside the gym, but it's someone who was in a podcast, Jim Kroll, and he was 6 years old, and a teacher told him like, well, you're you're a slow reader, Jim. So Jim grew up and thinking he was a slow reader. So he was always like, you know, in having problems with reading, and he was having insecurities about it, and you know, he really had to fight for it, and so on. And still at like 30 something, he was like, you know, I'm a very slow reader. He was talking to one of his coaches, and the coach was like, so okay, so what do you mean with slow reader? uh, so you have problems like reading a book or so? Like, no, I can read a book. Oh, okay, how many books do you read? Well, he's like, well, I usually read like one or two books a week. And the coach was like, so you read more than 50 books a year? I was like, well, yeah, maybe 80, 90. Like, well, I have to break it to you, you're not a slow reader. Like, and then, you know, they started to map that out, and they tested it, and like, well, no, he's not a slow reader. But he was been telling himself all the way, like through school,
Yeah.
through high school, through college, and also, you know, as a professional. He worked in banking and investments and stuff like that, and he was always like, I'm the slow reader. I need to hold myself back, you know.
Yeah. It's this thing of I mean, the book Mindset comes to mind because this is exactly what she's talking about. And you know, having this fixed mindset of, you know, a belief, you know, something that we were told from a young age, and how that has, you know, grown with us throughout the year, and how it's the years, and how it's manifested into our life. And you know, at what point, you know, do you decide, okay, this isn't how I am? You know, does it take being analyzed or an experiment to figure out that, okay, I'm not a slow reader, or I am a good artist, right? Switching to a growth mindset, right? I don't believe that it happens overnight. I believe that it takes practice, right? Things take practice. But acknowledging that this is something that was told to me, these kind of like rules that, you know, that's almost like rules that we've lived by our entire life. And at some point in our adulthood, you know, hopefully when you're not too old, you change that. And how that can change your perspective, how that can change your life. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, definitely. And I'm thinking about like insecurities that I've been having, and you know, I still have insecurities probably that are somewhere lurking. And the thing is, just realizing that you have those is the first thing. Like, it's like almost being an alcoholic, right?
Yeah.
You need to realize those things first. And the thing is, okay, that's the first step. You realize that and just accept that I have these insecurities. Now the second step is to face those insecurities, face those demons. And they are, you know, the best way to do it is to do frontal attack, usually. But not everyone can do it with a frontal attack. So it is okay, and this is kind of, it is okay to approach it in any way, really, that
Mm-hmm.
the speed you're doing it at is not so important. The intention is more important.
Mm-hmm.
So something like, take the scale again. So one way to do this is to first buy a scale,
Mm-hmm.
right? You don't have to use it. It's just going to be there,
Mm-hmm.
and you're just going to watch it. And now, you're going to take, I don't know, after a week, maybe 1 year, I don't know, you're going to take a pack of milk, and you're just going to weigh the pack of milk, and you're going to weigh stuff on that,
Mm-hmm.
and just, okay, it doesn't bite me. It's just a scale standing there. And then, you might start to tip your toe on it and say, oh, what happens when I tip it? Then, eventually, just, if you're gonna look at this, you're dipping your toe to the ocean, and,
Mm-hmm.
and at one point, you're just gonna jump in
Right.
and see what happens.
Yeah.
And I think that is like where you break new ground and so on. And for
Mm-hmm.
some people, this is just, they don't even dip their toe, they just boom,
Right.
jump in. And what is the best approach is, I mean, whatever works
Yeah.
for you. And yeah,
Yeah.
I just think it's good to, rather than just trying to hide and try to push those away, those insecurities, it's better to actually try to face them.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's easy at all.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why it helps to be strong. It helps to be,
Mm-hmm.
mentally strong,
Mm-hmm.
and have support. Some people really need to have psychological support for doing those things
Mm-hmm.
when you have phobias or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we can, grow that into a really big monster if we want to.
Mm-hmm.
But for most people, those are just small demons, and we
Mm-hmm.
can, just whack them out like
Yeah.
whack-a-mole.
I had my old when I used to sing, I had this voice teacher, and he did this the exercise, and he called them devil affirmations. And it made me think about this, because let's say you were going through a piece and there was, a difficult moment in there. and he's like, okay, well, what's the self-talk,
Mm-hmm.
and you would, what he had you do would, you weren't singing at this moment, but you were going, you were talking through the voice of the devil or the self-talk. So you would say, you like, you're making ugly sounds. You're not breathing in the correct places. You won't be able to perform this, for at least, a year. And sometimes you get really into it, and what would happen is you would use that, and then you'd go back into the piece, and oftentimes you'd sing much better. And it really did work. And I thought it was very valuable, because you would acknowledged the issue. You acknowledged the insecurity. You let it have its kind of its voice, or its time to speak. So
yeah, I mean, sometimes just saying what the insecurity is just enough to just make it disappear.
Yeah.
And did you have like a special key that you always like feared when you saw it when singing?
I can't think of anything specific, but it was generally like, with like high belting, or, like the end of a piece. Would I have enough air, to sustain the entire, 6 bars or 8 bars of music at the end? And, where would I be able to hit this note? Then it becomes the most important note in the entire piece. Yeah, those were my biggest fears. Coming in on time,
there are some good acts out there, to be honest, that are so funny. Like, I have to think about performance. So people that are singing, and they're hitting the wrong key and note, or the timing is off, where
Yeah.
they're like being very big concerts where I think it's one with Van Halen or something like that, where I think their the sound on the stage is so
Mm-hmm.
bad they
Yeah.
can't hear the sound going
Okay.
out.
Yeah.
So the singer is just like trying to figure out the pace,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
he's totally offbeat with everything.
Yeah.
It's everyone is, to be honest. Like you can hear, I guess, like they can hear a bit of the drums when they're on the stage, but it's so loud, everything,
Yeah.
and they can't really, connect. It's so funny to see that.
Yeah.
um but I think, again, even in those contexts when there might be like very high pressure
Mm-hmm.
uh performance on the stage, everyone is watching you.
Yeah.
And like what happens is, well, there's no escape there, right?
Yeah.
And I guess for some people that are doing performance, this is also the thing that you
Mm-hmm.
want to face that kind
Mm-hmm.
of fear of getting ridiculed or
Mm-hmm.
whatever it might be on the stage. And doing that kind of also builds you the character to kind of
Mm-hmm.
become more courageous facing
Yeah.
other fears. But um, yeah, something that always like kind of helped me is this idea of like, what's the worst thing that can happen?
Yeah.
And sometimes we're just building up these big castles of things that we think are important, and then it's like, no, but what's the worst thing, what's the really worst thing that can happen?
Mm-hmm.
If you step on the scale, what's the absolutely worst thing that's going to happen? It's like, well, nothing really happens.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah.
um, and yeah, or on the stage, you don't hit the key or the note,
Yeah.
and what's the worst thing that can happen is like, well, you might lose your job, you're never going to have, be on stage again, and blah blah blah. But you know is that really true for one
Mm-hmm.
thing? Like,
Yeah.
no, it's usually, and when you start to think about that, and then you're on stage, and you might be cold, you have something, and then you can't hit the
Mm-hmm.
tone, so you have
Mm-hmm.
to kind of maybe pick a
Mm-hmm.
uh, lower tone for that, and then people are like, well, it was different, and so on, like, well, yeah, sorry, my voice was not there today.
Yeah.
And yeah, or yeah, I totally missed it, and yeah, it's
Mm-hmm.
funny that happened.
Yeah. But also it's like you learn something and it's always valuable, So I mean, like I like the example of stepping on the scale because okay, it's not the number that you wanted, but you're going to learn something in that moment. You're going to learn that maybe eating a bag of chips at night is not the best thing for me, or I need to start thinking about alternative, ways of eating or alternative things to eat. So you're going to learn if it's a performance, to next time I'm going to take that extra hour with the band or the accompanist or the orchestra or whatever
Mm,
and practice until I can't make a mistake. Right. I mean, shit happens,
mm,
that we don't have control over sometimes. But there's always lessons to be learned.
mm.
And I think when going back to talking about insecurity, the more lessons that you can learn, the less insecure you will be.
Yeah, and even being faced with the fact that there are some things I can't do.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm never going to be that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's also taking away insecurity, because now I'm sure that
Yeah.
it's not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
um but you know that is kind of the more in the finite, really granular things, but they are definitely, you can always keep on, you know, again, trying. You can be Forrest Gump
Yeah.
and, you know, just try your best and
Yeah.
then you do your best, which is, you know, um, one sense is like, yeah, having good character. And what does that mean? Well,
Mm-hmm.
you know, being trustworthy
Mm-hmm.
is one of the, I guess, highest
Yeah.
values you can have, like, or principles. So
There's a really good song I heard on Sesame Street called The Power of Yet. And it's sung by, oh, I can't remember her name. Anyways, doesn't matter. But it's called The Power of Yet. And so now when Sophia says, I can't do this, I say, you can't do it yet.
okay.
And, you know, at some point she will be able to. And I will celebrate that. Right. But I will celebrate the, you know, all of the times she attempts it as well. Right.
So is there anything right now that you feel you can't do, or that you will never be able to do?
That I know for sure I will never be able to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Drive.
Drive a car?
I will never drive a car. I don't want to drive a car, and I will never drive a car.
And why?
Because I don't want to.
And why don't you want to?
Because I don't think I'm the type of person that should drive a car.
Okay, that sounds like a story.
I don't believe I should be behind the wheel.
Okay.
It's just something that I have always felt when I was you know, coming to the age, you know, I think it was 16, when everybody went to go get, you know, their licenses. My dad would take me to like parking lots of like the shopping mall at nighttime and like tried to teach me how to drive. My dad's like the worst driver also. So maybe this is partly why, but you know, he wanted to teach me to drive and I got behind the wheel a couple of times. Wasn't for me. When I moved to Toronto, I was about, I don't know, 20 or so. My aunt took me out and she wanted to teach me to drive and wasn't for me. So
that is a cool thing, because I definitely, well, you, as you might realize, that's a story you're telling yourself. Like you perfectly, you can ride a bike, you can do all these things.
Yeah.
Right? You can take care of a kid.
Yeah.
And, you know, I can basically, like most people, even that can drive a car and been doing that for a while, they can drive a car with one eye closed, one finger on the wheel, and texting with the other hand. It's not secure, like it's not the best practice, but I'm just saying people will be able to drive like that for a year without anything happening. Eventually something will happen. That's why you don't do it. But I mean, the thing is with car driving, in this sense, and the analogy is for other things too, is like, but with cars, riding a bike, whatever it is, shit will happen. That is like things that happen when you expose yourself to, you know, whatever. If you go travel somewhere, things can happen. Like that is a part of the bargain. But yeah, I mean, that's a cool thing, and I definitely think that is, I mean, as you said, like if you don't want to, then nothing's going to happen. But what's going to change that want is, of course, you know, the just the change of your story. Where you start to say like, well, you know, it's not super important, but you know, actually I could do it. And actually if I would just, you know, sit myself in a car for the next 10 years and I was just going to drive, you know, first I'm going to drive 10 meters, and second week I'm driving 20 meters, and you know, and then I'm going to do that reverse for 2 years. Like, you're going to be the best car driver in the world, right? And there's no reason for not thinking that, because it's just gonna, you know, the more time you spend there,
Right.
And obviously you are intelligent enough to know that, has nothing to do with your genes. It has nothing to do with anything more than this kind of story.
Yeah.
Like Jim, I'm a bad reader or
Mhm.
slow reader.
Yeah. What about you?
Yeah, what I mean, I have a lot of insecurities for sure. As I said, like they're poking, probably, or like hiding around.
Hmm.
Uh, but yeah, what do I have for big insecurities? Like I have, well, something I always had is probably just being, you know, tall and big.
Hmm.
And one of the insecurities that comes with that is you don't, like when you're tall or if you're small, I don't know how it is, but you don't realize that you're big and tall, and it's just everyone else is notifying you. And then of course when you're flying with your airplane, and when you start CrossFit, but there is some kind of underlurking insecurity in being, you know, bigger and taller.
Hmm.
um, Maybe there are some parts that comes with it, is like you're automatically seen as more authoritarian.
Hmm.
You're automatically supposed to be in some way,
Hmm.
and maybe also the insecurity of, you know, just moving strangely, because
Hmm.
your movement pattern starts to you know, change when you're bigger
Hmm.
or taller. Like these really tall guys, when you see those, it looks like a lot of funny, like when
Yeah.
they're walking.
Yeah.
And I guess that's something that also is, you know, it's not a big issue, and like I can intelligently kind of pick those things apart.
Yeah.
um but yeah, sometimes it's definitely like something that does has been whispering before, like does this like affect my, you know, I guess this is has to do with you know, something you have when you grow up, like am I attractive, like,
Hmm.
and stuff like that. So is this affecting my
Hmm.
attractiveness
Hmm.
and whatever. And you know, there's a reason why, or at least I think why most actors and actresses, they're mostly shorter people.
Hmm.
And I think that has to do a bit with this, like what we associate with like nicer movement patterns
Hmm.
and so on.
Interesting.
I don't know if it's like something that is more genetically driven in us, that
Hmm.
what we find aesthetically more nice. But yeah, I think there might be something like that, but it's yeah.
Okay. That's fascinating.
Actually, a very good insecurity I have, or I got, is English. So when I when I moved to Germany, my English was I'm telling myself this. My English was twice as good as it is today, and it comes down to like when I started just getting into German and so on, I felt like I started to lose control over my capacity or ability to speak English in in any way I wanted to. So before I moved to Germany, I could basically pick up any dialect or accent in English.
Hmm.
And now every time when I try, it's just blocks. Like if I really want to talk like a Southern American accent, uh, I can't keep that anymore. Like
Yeah.
or if I want to try to do like an Irish accent now on the spot, I can't do that. I used
But you
to
used to be able to.
I used to be able to just switch Scottish, Irish. Canadian was never like super clear to me.
Yeah.
But you know, Queen's accent,
Yeah.
Southern Australian. Um, but yeah, I just lost that capacity when I moved here for some way, and yeah, that definitely. And now because I'm thinking of it, it makes me super insecure. So every time I'm like trying to, I just block myself. I just don't let the flow come. So I even
Interesting.
had this in, to be honest, in before high school. So we had English at school, And my assignment in many of these like English classes was the teacher found it so interesting that I could just, read a dialogue and I could switch dialects in this dialogue.
Yeah.
So I had this assignment many times, like, and I really enjoyed that. But yeah,
Interesting.
yeah. But now it's just always blocking. Um, so yeah, it's
Maybe if we had more members from like different English speaking areas, it would start to, I mean, we do, but
I tend to adjust my dialect a bit more. So when I don't know, not so much with Mark, I guess, but I've had that with, when people are speaking different dialects. I tend to, I have some friends that are Irish, that I tend to speak a bit more Irish accents, and I pronounce it a bit differently. But it's not
pretty good.
yeah, but again, like now when I'm trying to, I can't keep that flow.
Yeah.
Like I start to feel like, this doesn't sound really, and then, but
Yeah. It's like when I meet other Canadians here, I start to speak a little bit more Canadian.
yeah,
But
how is Canadian like?
don't ask. I couldn't even do. Maybe I am doing a Canadian accent now, but I don't know. Like when I talked to my grandparents yesterday, and my grandfather, he's from Toronto, so everything is a little bit more. See, I can't even do it. No, I can't even do it right now.
Okay.
No, I can't. But it's more closed. The West Coast is more spread open. But anyways, we can have an entire episode about different dialects if you want, and then you can give us a,
Yeah. No, interesting. Okay, cool.
All right.
Do we have anything else on the agenda? No.
No, I think we covered a lot of interesting, topics and points, and I hope that, who's ever listening got something out of this. And if you have questions or ideas or topics that you want us to talk about, please let us know, and we'll think about it.
We'll think about it, and don't be insecure.
Yeah.
Let us know. And yeah, I guess key point, everyone has insecurities, and sometimes you just need to face them. It might not mean that they're going to disappear, but better to live in the enlightenment than in the dark.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, and bye.
Bye.